So recently, an article came out about Vice President Joe Biden. Now, Biden, of course, in this story published by the New York Times, surprisingly enough, they wrote about how Biden helped a Michigan Republican possibly win his election. Now, this was, of course, going on during the midterm elections, where, of course, we were expecting a blue wave, and essentially we got it. And it turns out that blue wave might have actually been a little bit bigger here in Michigan had Joe Biden actually helped the Democrat in the race. Now, let me give you the details real quick here. Now, the article pointed out that he had a paid speech that he performed in Lake Michigan at Lake Michigan College uh, with Fred Upton. Now, Fred Upton was not actually giving a speech as well. He was in the crowd, but he was very, very nice to Fred Upton. In fact, according to the article, Biden was collecting $200,000 from the Economic Club of Southwestern Michigan to address a Republican leaning audience. Now, this is according to a speaking contract obtained by the New York Times and with interviews with organizers. Now, that group is a business minded civic organization and is supported in part by the Upton Family Foundation. Now, Mr. Biden had said that, the New York Times said that Mr. Biden had praised Mr. Upton when he was giving that speech for $200,000 to a Republican audience. So now, how does that help how does that help Republicans? How did that hurt the Democrats? Well, it turns out what he said in the speech actually ended up going in Republican ads. In fact, Eric Lester. Now, Eric Lester is a retired physician who chaired the Democratic Party in Berrien County during the midterms. He said he viewed Mr. Biden's supportive remarks about Upton as a betrayal. Lester, who attended the speech, said he had confronted an aide to Mr. Biden in the hallway, telling him that the former vice president had badly damaged the Democratic cause. He said, "It just gives Fred Upton cover and makes it possible for him to continue to pretend to be a useful, bipartisan fellow." Now, of course, what's this all about? Well, look, Fred Upton had actually done a bipartisan bill for cancer research. Now, it makes sort of sense that Biden would be in favor of that since his son, Beau Biden, died in 2015 of brain cancer. So, look, I get it. I get the bipartisanship. I get all that. But, okay, look, if you're going to do a speech and you're going to get paid $200,000, in fact, it's $150,000 for the speaking, and then a $50,000 travel allowance. Well, that's a pretty big travel allowance, right? Look, I'm actually not bothered by him getting paid for doing speeches. I know that sounds crazy, even speeches for Republicans. But what was he doing to help the Democrat in the race? That's Matt Longjohn. Well, it turns out he didn't do anything for Matt Longjohn. He refused to endorse him. Interesting. So basically, regarding Mr. Biden's decision, according to the Times, not to endorse Mr. Upton's Democratic challenger, Matt Longjohn, his spokesman, Mr. Russo, said the former vice president had, quote, received hundreds of requests for endorsements from all over the country and endorsed 135 races this cycle where his impact would be greatest. You don't think going to Michigan would have an impact? Your endorsement would have an impact? Seriously? Matt Longjohn lost by like 4.5 points. That might have made a difference. Especially since what you had here was Republicans using this speech, taking it, putting it in ads, and saying, look, even Joe Biden thinks Fred Upton is really great, is one of the greatest people he's ever worked with. That definitely helped Republicans. And of course, that helped Joe Biden too, because he got $200,000 out of the deal. I mean, that's crazy. Now, I want to show you some of the Democratic response to this. As I said before, Mr. Lester, in an email to Biden's staff, Lester employed the former vice president to back Mr. Longjohn. Surely, he said, VP Biden did not intend to endorse Mr. Upton and slight the local Democratic candidate. But he ended up getting No response. He said his campaign had reached out to Mr. Biden's staff through an intermediary, seeking to discuss his involvement in the race, but Long John said, quote, "There was nothing but silence. We just requested a phone call, and there was no response." What about helping Democrats? I thought you're supposed to help Democrats, right? I thought one of the things that establishment politicians always go after Bernie Sanders for, oh, you didn't help Democrats enough during 2016. Oh, you didn't help Democrats enough in 2018. You're not even a Democrat. You're not even a Democrat. Well, is this what Democrats do? Joe Biden's a Democrat. He just helped a Republican win in Michigan and refused to endorse a Democrat from one of these races. Oh, but he endorsed 135 other candidates. And you couldn't be... Look, this looks really bad because, again, Biden got $200,000 in speaking fees to go and speak to a Republican audience. No, he's done. He's done. He's done. And actually, you know what? After I give you the quote from earlier today about this, I'm going to show you why he's done. Former Vice President Joe Biden on Thursday morning responded to the New York Times article by saying this, quote, "I get in trouble. I read the New York Times today, and that one of my problems is if I ever run for Republicans, if I run for president, I like Republicans. Well, bless me, Father, for I have sinned," he quipped to laughter in the room. That is incredibly dismissive. Here you have Joe Biden revealing who he really is. Look, the memes were fun. And, you know, the Obama term, oh, it's crazy, kooky Uncle Joe. Well, this is who Joe Biden is. All of that was a mask obscuring who he really is. He is a political animal, and he is one of those people who is more than happy to work with Republicans, right? Even on stuff that I may agree with. But at the same time, this same Republican, by the way, Fred Upton, created a bill to take away health care from Americans. You can't call him out on that? You can't endorse the actual Democrat in the race? No, for the people who support both Joe Biden and hate Bernie Sanders because you didn't support Democrats enough, you might want to take a look at this. Might be interesting for you to check out. Look, I think he's done. I don't think he can come back from this. I don't think this is something... Look, he's playing by the old rule book. Oh, no, if I just pal around with Republicans because people want bipartisanship, well, that's not going to work. Well, look, here's the thing. Look, I think this is over. He's done with. He's not going to survive a Democratic primary, especially with all these actual progressives that are working on good policy. And so, yeah, I know it's really early, but I think Biden is done. Hey guys, hopefully you enjoyed that free video. Now I'm going to have to ask you a favor. Between the demonetization and the YouTube algorithm messing around with view counts, etc., we're having a hard time adjusting to the new YouTube reality, which is where you guys come in. See, we have a Patreon, patreon.com/TYTNation, set up to help us rely on you guys, the viewers, instead of big corporate ads. Look, you know the show. You know I'm not in favor of big corporations anyway. So help us transition away from relying on the ad model to pay the bills and sign up to be a patron, patreon.com/TYTNation. That goes a long way to help us keep the lights on. And you guys will know that you're supporting independent progressive media.